with me Tarun Nangia. Today, it is a matter of pride for all of us that the news of Justice Hima Kohli being elevated as the Chief Justice of Telangana High Court is now known to all of us. And the fact that it is a pride for everyone at Delhi High Court that somebody who's learned, practice, elevated as a judge has now become Chief Justice. And more so for all the women. And may I say that so many women who are now entering the profession, which is much more than ever India saw since independence. So many women lawyers at the bar actively arguing, winning cases, also acquiring eminent positions as GCs in companies. For all of them, it is something to look up to that a woman has reached such a position of the Chief Justice. And to discuss all of this and understand more that in actuality what all this means, that she has reached this position, I have with me an eminent panel. I have with me Pinky Anand. Ma'am has served as the Additional Solicitor General of India. She is Senior Advocate. I have with me Priya Hingorani. Ma'am is Senior Advocate at the Supreme Court and the Delhi High Court. I have with me Meghna Mishra. She's partner with Karanjawala and Company, one of India's leading litigation law firms. I have with me the pleasure of having the company on the show of Justice Iqbal Ahmed Ansari. Sir has served as the Chief Justice of Patna High Court. And I also have to share a short anecdote that he was sworn in as Chief Justice by then Governor of Bihar, Ram Nath Kovind, who went on to become as the President of India. But let us start the show quickly. And I would like to thank each of my panelists who took out time for the show. Let us open the show. Pinky ma'am, could you open the show with a round of your opening comment?
I think one of the most tremendous achievements, Justice Hima Kohli, well deserved, and she became the first woman Chief Justice of Telangana High Court, a new state which has come up recently, and definitely is going to make milestones there as she has made in the Delhi High Court. I mean, I have seen her as a lawyer growing up from the days she's almost a contemporary, a very good friend, a very warm-hearted person. I've seen her as a counsel. She stood up for each and every one of her contentions as a person, as an activist, as a warm-hearted, somebody who looked after the interests of so many different diverse interests, which was juveniles, which was prisoners, which was the creche, which was the making of the creche, the Delhi Legal Aid Society. I recently, in fact, just before she left, I argued a few matters before her. And it has been, it was with a resounding success, of course, in life, because you're happy that somebody is able to take your viewpoint and pass a well-written judgment on that basis, long enough to hold her views in whichever direction. She's been well-respected and she's really stood her ground. I am so happy for her, and I'm happy for all of us that she's done it so well. She's the first woman Chief Justice. What more can we expect in terms of breaking glass ceilings and in getting there? In fact, I think glass ceiling is too low by now. We need to go beyond that, and she's gone beyond that.
Thank you so much for sharing. I'll go to Ma'am Priya Hingorani. Now, before we started the show, you, in fact, when you joined, you shared it with me that she was the first woman Chief Justice of Telangana High Court. I did not know this fact, but how important is it when something like this happens?
See, according to me, the fact that women judges are becoming chief justices, are being considered for high courts which are not their own or parent high courts. It's a very, very important thing for me, according to me. Because when you are going as a chief justice of any state high court, a new one where you are not accustomed to the ways, the culture, the language, the ethos of that state, to take over and to be able to make a mark, to be able to get the bar to support you and the bar to like you and know you is very important. We've had judges and we've had judges. And there are some judges who have left such a great mark on our minds and hearts, not only through their judgments, but because of their behavior. And their conduct with the bar, because the bar and the judiciary are so important for administration of justice. So according to me, Justice Hima Kohli is such a warm-hearted person. We've known her, as Pinky said, that we've known her as she was a lawyer, then as she adorned the bench. I'm sure, and already, as I mentioned, so many of my friends have already told me that they are appearing in her court. Of course, she's very tough, she's strict, she's firm, but she's also, very fair in her court hearings, and they've already started liking her. So she started making her place felt in Telangana High Court, which we are all very proud of.
Okay, I'll go to Meghna Mishra. Ma'am, what do you think about this elevation, as well as anything that you would like to add about Justice
So,
Hima?
of course, heartiest congratulations to Justice Hima Kohli on her elevation. And while we are all absolutely thrilled because it is so well deserved, she came from a completely non legal background. Something that she mentioned in her farewell, that for women, it's a notch higher. For all lawyers, of course, you need to be consistent, fair, and judges also. But I still think women, although we've come a really long way, as Pinky ma'am rightly said, the glass ceiling has been broken, but there are so many more, and Pinky ma'am herself is an example of that. She's with the ASB, and so there are so many examples of this, but we have a long way to go, and I think Justice Hima Kohli has set a very good example because he understood that it's not just about one woman making it. It's about making life fair for all the women lawyers who are there, giving them a chance. And when something like this happens, each one of us is inspired. So it's not about just the piece of pie for you. We all have to make new pies for all the women who are out there. And I think
Okay.
that's what this is about. And about Justice Hima Kohli, I have to say that in the High Court, although when I started my practice in the High Court, she had just been elevated. So I did not see her in her practice time because I was earlier in the Supreme Court and then moved from there to the High Court. Her court was an example of how you could go swiftly, fairly, and quickly through your matters. No nonsense approach, very fair, very quick. It was a rapid fire. You had to be completely prepared. And I'll share a couple of anecdotes as we go along there.
Okay. I'll go to Justice Iqbal Ahmed Ansari. Sir, you have occupied that seat, that chair of being Chief Justice. You know how the collegium works, how difficult things are to reach the pinnacle. What would you equate this achievement with that Justice Hima Kohli has achieved in her career in life?
It's a great achievement, not only for her, but for the Delhi High Court as a whole, particularly its members, advocates, her colleagues. Delhi is the national capital, and you have a very large number, substantial number of female advocates in Delhi. And in northern India, Chandigarh is another place where you have a number of female lawyers. So her elevation as a Chief Justice of Telangana High Court is a great achievement because Telangana has very different culture from most of the part of India. And there to make a mark as she has started making, according to what I learned from Mrs. Hingurani, it's a big thing. I would say one more thing, that in the northern India, women are not very much in the legal profession, except for Delhi or Chandigarh. The rest of the part of the country is different. I come from Northeast. Northeast is still different in the sense that though it appears to be very backward, but the number of female lawyers is quite noticeable there, particularly in the states like Assam, Nagaland, even Mizoram for that matter. One thing which I would say, not only for Justice Hima Kohli, but for any women judge, is it when a judge is a female, if any litigant is there who is a female, her expectations from the female judge is much higher than that of a male judge. But recently, you have seen one of the judges of the Bombay High Court is in controversy. And even my daughter was saying, well, and she is a woman. As if a woman cannot commit a mistake or commit a mistake against another woman. So this reminds me of Justice Manjula Chilur, who demitted her office some time back as Chief Justice of Bombay High Court. She was saying that when she was a judge of the family court in Mysore, uh, there was a case of maintenance under Section 125 CRPC. And on account of the fact that the husband had remarried, she and the second wife was claiming maintenance. She had held that she was not entitled to maintenance. And this woman litigant in the court itself said, well, this is the kind of justice that a woman receives from another woman. So when a woman expects something more from a female judge, obviously to that extent, a male person will feel slightly unsecured and there to generate as she has been able to do.
Now, moving ahead, I'll read out a statement that Justice Hima Kohli made on her farewell, and I'll request Pinky ma'am to comment on it. She said, dedication, discipline, constant updation of laws, honest and sincere advice to clients, and carrying the trust of the courts. Dedication, discipline, constant updation of laws, honest and sincere advice to clients, and carrying the trust of the court are the hallmarks of a good lawyer, whether male or female. It is just that the notch is a bit higher for the woman practitioner. Now, this last statement that it is just a notch higher for the woman practitioner, do you think that you have unreasonable expectations from women lawyers?
Of course, there are unreasonable expectations, Tarun. Nobody can say they are not unreasonable. Why should you be twice as good or thrice as good as, let us say, a man to be good in the first place? So the equation is you are having absolute decadence there and absolute disparity, because where is the question? But having said that, Eva is absolutely right in that sense that you expect a woman to be much better than her peers, not only as women to women, but as women to men. And this kind of equation is something that you're grappling with most of the time. Of course, by now you become used to it. And having become used to it doesn't mean that it is not unfair. But you have to achieve what you have to achieve. So whatever it takes to make it good. And Justice Hima Kohli lived that these statements. She actually was way better than some of her male counterparts. And that's the reason why she is where she is. And honestly speaking, a very strong woman and a very, very fair woman. All her comments is, I like the way that you didn't ask about her comments about law, the practice of law, but you asked about this question, because each of her statements about law, of course, are something which are universal and something which is the best advice that can be given to lawyers made on her, of course, on her farewell. And she also talked about human element, by the way. And I think this is one thing about her that makes her stand even way above, her human element and her interaction with people. And a warmth which permeates across, which is whether across court, lawyers, or family. And this is absolutely different from her personality as a judge. There she is strict. And as Meghna rightly said, there's a kind of a complete blasting situation going on where you're answering rapid fire, so she said. And that's correct. That was Hima Kohli for you in the Delhi High Court. And she would, of course, remain the same. And that's the way that lawyers and judges should be, because you should be able to answer responses that come back. And at the end of the day, decide fairly what you want from a judge.
Okay. I'll go across to Priya Ingorani. Ma'am, when you heard this statement, that it is just that is a notch higher for the woman practitioner, do you think that it came from her heart that, women have to be twice as good to be counted half as much? Is it really true in the profession?
It is absolutely true. In fact, while she spoke about her life and the fact that she was a first generation lawyer and how her sister looked after the business of her father and how she gave her so much more time to put in the profession. She mentioned how hard she had to work and how much she had to work and how much she had to prove herself. And ours, like we have all done. I mean, of course, some of us have had the advantage of coming from family of lawyers, but still, we still have to make your own. You still have to work as much harder as any other male lawyer in the bar. Sometimes even harder than they do. And I mean, on my personal front, I can say this is of course not on law, but on the bar elections, I became the first woman secretary of the Supreme Court Bar Session in 1999, and I won by one vote after having lost 1 year. And it was absolutely, I was the first one, and it was impossible for the male colleagues to accept that a lady could become the secretary of the bar. So we have had not, and I mean, like as Meghna said, whether it was Miss Indra Jaising and then later on Pinky to come up as ASGs. I mean, they were the first two to start with. And even looking at Justice Geeta Mittal, if for her to take on a court as the court of the Jammu and Kashmir High
Yes.
Court and to make amazing changes and to bring out innovative programs to do things there, even in the pandemic. I mean, hats off to the judges that we've had who have carved their niche wherever they have gone. And I think it's we have to work harder than our male colleagues. But to be fair to them, also I must say that the hard work is recognized, whether by the judges in court when they, in their judgments, they appreciate the hard work put in by the lawyers, but also women lawyers, and also by our colleagues. They do appreciate our hard work.
I'll request Meghna Mishra to add to it. She's also been at the bar for well over 20 years now, maybe a generation younger than Justice Hima Kohli, and she represents the later phase of the bar. How have things changed, and do you relate to what Justice Hima Kohli said?
Well, both yes and no. Yes, because I think at a time when I think in the last 10 years, what I find is a lot more lady, girls, lawyers, women in the profession. Earlier, they would join the profession, and the trend was that after a few years, they would not be able to then continue. I think all of us have become more aware of the difficulties that women do face. And with judges like Justice Hima Kohli, Justice Pratibha Singh, there is Jyoti Singh, I think the Delhi High Court is phenomenal in that sense. We have judges who were practicing, so they know the problems which lady lawyers do face. And like Pinky ma'am had mentioned about the creche, now these are genuine issues that women do face. But the fact that we are even having this discussion today, Tarun, is evidence of the fact that there is that struggle, and we are still looking at so if you see in the Supreme Court, there are still only 2 lady judges. The representation of women in the high courts as judges is still very low.
In fact, Meghna ma'am, I distinctly remember we recorded a Legally Speaking episode when Madras High Court had 12 women judges, which was the highest in India.
Correct.
Whichever was at all high courts.
Yes, but we still have a really long way to go. And like Justice Ansari said, probably, of course, I'm speaking from the experience of the Delhi High Court. I find a lot more women are there. And no, when I said I don't disagree completely is because I find that women do have a space. There are firms like I've been really lucky. I've been with Karanjawala, which has been a wonderful workspace for a woman. So there was empathy. I think while we still have a long way to go in terms of judiciary representation at the law firm level, as practicing counsel, as people who come regularly to the bar or working in law firms, I think the number of women has increased tremendously. And that trend, I think, is here to stay. So I think what we need to focus on, Tarun, is that we all just need to keep doing our bit to try and push rather than pull them down. We need to act like the ladder which can push our female colleagues up.
Okay. That's a valid and well point taken. I'll go to Justice Ansari. Sir, if you could, when Justice Hima Kohli made this statement, you relate to it that she's younger than you. She's a younger judge in that sense. But she still comes from an age where she would have entered the practice about 30 years ago at least 30 years ago. Do you think there is in a sense a recognition of the struggles of women in the profession by their male counterparts as now they are elevated in that sense? Do you think there is a recognition?
Definitely, Tarun. Profession of law is a very tough profession, but particularly if you are practicing. And for a woman to make her mark in the profession is not very easy. It's very difficult. And so far as the Chief Justice is concerned, because she has now been elevated to the position of a Chief Justice, we all know that he is the first among the equals as well as the other judges of the High Court are concerned. But first amongst the equal will mean that she has to be now a leader. Otherwise, individually, we as judges will work as far as our court is concerned. We control our own proceedings. That is good enough. But when you become a Chief Justice, you have the responsibility to carry the entire High Court, not only the bench, but also the bar. And and it's a new High Court. Whatever little I have heard about her or I have known about her, I'm sure she will make her mark in the building of the future of Telangana as a state. I wouldn't be surprised if Telangana High Court becomes one of the noticeable High Court in the near future during her tenure as Chief Justice.
Okay, I'll go quickly to Priya Hingorani, ma'am. Very quickly, a comment from you. Justice Hima Kohli said on the farewell speech, the bonhomie and the camaraderie amongst the members of the bar was the most outstanding feature of the Delhi High Court. Do you think Delhi High Court has made a mark in a sense of a healthy litigating atmosphere compared to other high courts in the country? Do you think that it stands apart?
See, I am biased towards Delhi because I belong to Delhi. So I would definitely say that yes, the Delhi High Court is a place where the minute you argue your matter and you come out, you both the counsels go in for a cup of coffee or tea and a samosa in the canteen, and you forget what happened in court. But I think to be fair to the other high courts, there it depends on lawyers to lawyers as well. So there are good feelings and good practices in different high courts as well. But yes, Delhi High Court has made its mark on various accounts. One, of course, the fact that we have a lot of our lawyers who have gone on to become judges in the Delhi High Court have really proved themselves to be very good judges. They have maintained that thin line between the fact that they were colleagues at the bar and now they are judges and they have to be fair to all. That is something which is remarkable for, I can say, for Delhi High Court. The other thing is the atmosphere. And as you know, in pandemic, the women lawyers of the Delhi High Court have set up a virtual get-together called the Delhi High Court Women Canteen, where they've been discussing, having webinars, having discussions, interacting with each other. Done many programs where Pinky, Meghna and I all have been part of it. And that's where when Justice Hima Kohli spoke, she spoke her heart out in those programs as well, compared to what she spoke in her formal farewell. So yes, I must say, being a Delhi girl, and of course, I would definitely add that Delhi High Court definitely has a better atmosphere and a warmer atmosphere than some of the high courts that I've been to.
Okay. Pinky ma'am, would you concur with Justice Hima Kohli said that the bonhomie and the atmosphere of Delhi High Court stands out in that sense?
Definitely, since I come from Delhi myself, and I've been through the various courts, including Delhi High Court, and even recently when I went for a physical hearing, in fact, my juniors were commenting and saying, you were chatting with everybody when you came out of court, which is a fact I did, and I was looking forward to it. So yes, it is a great opportunity, and I think the legal community itself is a large one and a warm one. So aside from what happens in court, we won't go there. But when you come out of court and you're standing by, even without the samosas and the coffee, because these days the canteens are closed, so that's not available, there is this bonhomie. But having said that, I actually have traveled the length and breadth of this country, and including all the high courts. I think there's a bonhomie overall. And I think, in a sense, the pressure that is generated on lawyers when you're in court, when you come out of the court, that pressure seems to dissipate, because you're actually been able to, you're able to talk to various colleagues of yours, friends. You've grown up with them. As I said, Justice Hima Kohli, I still remember one of the days where we were standing outside the water fountain on the same floor in the High Court chamber area. So one is, just grown up with everybody around, and by now you feel everybody is part of a larger family.
Talking about the, in a sense, the kind of feeling of bonhomie, do you, Meghna Mishra, agree with it that there is a certain liveliness to the Delhi High Court or the functioning of the Delhi High Court that adds value to a lawyer's life.
Absolutely. And I think that's what keeps us going, you know, at the end of the day, day after day, you know, you could finish your one matter at 10:30, 10:40. Your next matter may not reach up to even 3:30, but you don't feel the gap so much because of the chit chat and the friendships that you form. And, you know, every day you may not be sitting and reading in the bar room. There'll be days when you'll just chit chat with people and meet, and that I think it's across the profession, as ma'am I think rightly said. I don't think it's correct to say that it's something unique to the Delhi High Court, but definitely being someone who's practiced in Delhi, I know and have experienced it, and one is looking forward to experiencing that yet again once courts reopen.
Okay. One final comment from Justice Ansari on the Delhi High Court, and then we will close this show. Very quickly, sir, what good things have you heard about the Delhi High Court?
Well, I'm least qualified to speak about the functioning of Delhi High Court because I've never practiced there. But, you know, I have many friends in the bar even now, and I've known many of the judges. So that's how I'm familiar with the atmosphere. And what I find is that the general life in Delhi is the quality of life is better, and that's why perhaps in the bar also you find greater autonomy between the female and male lawyers. As a matter of fact, I think a time is coming when the distinction between male and female lawyer will disappear, hopefully, in Delhi High Court. Though it will remain, from my experience, what I have gathered in some other high courts, it will still take time because feudal kind of a society, but there are many high courts where the states have been feudal, and there this distinction is very, very noticeable.
Okay. On this note, we'll come to this end of the show. I would like to thank Ma'am Pinky Anand, Ma'am Priya Hingorani, Ma'am Meghna Mishra, Justice Ansari sir for sparing time for this very important episode discussing the elevation of Justice Hima Kohli. Now she's the first Chief Justice of Telangana High Court. It is indeed a moment pride for all of us. And I hope viewers also enjoyed this show as well. It was a different topic, a different episode, but these instances come rarely in life, and even we get to hear of such instances rarely, so it merits a discussion. Thank you all of you for joining on today's episode of Legally Speaking. Thank you, viewers.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.